Welcome to Inside Marketing with Market Surge, your front row seat to the boldest ideas and smartest strategies in the marketing game. Your host is Reed Hansen, Chief Growth Officer at Market Surge.
Hello and welcome back to Inside Marketing with Market Surge. Mark Regan, our guest today, is the co-founder of Poop Away, a pest waste management company that took one of the least glamorous services imaginable and turned it into a scalable, franchise-ready growth business. Launched in 2018 with a single truck, Poop Away focused on one simple promise: to make pet owners' lives easier through reliability, personality, and systems that actually work. Since then, Mark and his team have built repeatable processes around route optimization, customer experience, training, and local marketing. Today, Poop Away is preparing for national franchising, proving that with the right marketing, systems, and brand voice, even the most unsexy service businesses can become serious growth engines. I'm looking forward to hearing about this. I'm a pet owner myself. I totally see the value, and so I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. Thanks for joining, Mark.
Fun. I'm excited to talk about it.
Okay, so let's start with an obvious question. This is a business that people don't even want to think about, like a task. Pet owners, it's poop. It smells bad. It's sticky. It's gross.
Ruins your shoe.
Absolutely. How do you start the conversation? Maybe people don't even realize that this is a service you can have, but how do you bring it up? How do you educate and inform new potential clients?
One of the things that we have done right from the beginning is we try and lean into the fact that it's funny. Poop it makes people uncomfortable. They don't like to talk about it, but it's also part of owning a dog. So, we make little funny commercials and, Instagram posts that make fun of the fact that, poop is in your yard. It's something you don't want to think about, you don't want to talk about, you don't want to deal with. And we try and go way over the top. And I think just kind of confronting it head on makes people think of us. But it also gives people an opening to think about it and to talk about it, because it's funny to come home and say to your spouse, should we have someone come pick up the dog poop? I hate doing it. The kids aren't doing it. Let's pay someone else to do it.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So tell me a little bit about this. Now, how did you come up with the idea to do this? How did it become like a business that started to scale?
It's funny. I love telling the story because it was my business partner who actually came up with the idea, and we both worked together. We had a high-paying sales job, but we'd always talk about other things we could do, side hustles. And he mentioned this one day, and I thought, nobody's going to pay for that. Even though in the back of my head, I'm like, wouldn't that be great for me? Because I have dogs too. And he's a little older than me. He's kind of old school, and he's talking about newspaper ads. And he says, well, let's put an ad on Craigslist. It only costs $5. And I remember laughing at him. Craigslist, who goes to Craigslist? I didn't even know you could buy an ad on Craigslist.
Sure.
But he did it. He put an ad, something simple, and we got our first phone call. And that's when I started to think, maybe this is something that people really do want. And as crazy as it was then, that customer is still with us today.
Wow.
He was an executive chef. His wife had just had twins. They had, I forget if it was 2 or 3 dogs at the time, and they just didn't have time to do it. I think he said he was looking for a crib or something on Craigslist. Our ad popped up for whatever reason, and he was like, oh my God, this is one less thing, that I don't have to think about.
You mentioned babies. I wonder if there's some sort of branching out where you're taking care of diapers or yeah.
Who knows? A diaper pail will empty your diaper pail or something. Right. I don't know.
Which is equally unpleasant.
It's disgusting.
Okay, there's a lot of aspects to this business that I imagine when you're scaling. One is like hiring and staffing. How do you find your techs that do this? It's a dirty job for them. How do you bring them up?
It's a dirty job, and a lot of our techs use their own cars too, which still surprises me to this day that people will do that. But we had trouble at first finding people who wanted to do the job because it sounds gross, and it was like, who do we target? So we try in our Indeed ads, we're right up front. Yes, you will be picking up dog waste, but there's a lot of upsides. You're on your own all day. There's no one looking over your shoulder. We give our techs a lot of responsibility. They kind of own their route. And we try and find people who have a history of working with pets, whether they were groomers or one of our best employees is a horse trainer. I mean, she was probably our most experienced poop remover, with the amount she was dealing with before. And, just people who've shown the ability to work independently. And it always surprises me when we find someone who really does a great job, and just loves it and takes ownership of that route. And it's almost like the poop is a
Mm.
secondary, you know.
Okay.
It's really look for customer service people first.
Okay. You've done some ads, and I imagine that as a part of your business, there's probably some referral and word of mouth growth. What are your main drivers of growth?
As far as ads,
Well, yeah.
it's,
Then also maybe I'll throw out too, are you having your techs sell or knock to the neighbors?
we were really new and had no money. Got yard
Hmm.
signs, and that was how we built route density. We'd get a customer in a new town, and yard signs are so cheap. So of course we put one in a customer's house, but we'd also put one, at the rotary,
Okay.
at the busy intersection. We tried door knockers, but they just didn't produce. We tried just flooding an area with postcards. That didn't go anywhere. It was really the yard signage. You said word of mouth. And then we started getting company vehicles and wrapping them. That's been
Hmm.
huge. And then now, of course, it's Google ads, Facebook ads. But you can really start, service businesses are cheap to
Hmm.
start. They're tough to scale. But if there's anything I learned, you can really start with a few customers, word of mouth, a couple signs. And if you're really desperate, you can door knock.
Okay.
I know someone who actually does that same industry who go down the street when they get a new customer and knock on every door. I just want, we're doing Jan's house on the corner. I saw you have two dogs. We'll give you both a discount.
Yeah.
We've never done that, but I know it works for other people.
Okay. But you have grown, and so both organically, and you are starting to franchise. Now, about the thought process of what made you think about franchising versus just adding new owned locations? What was that thought process?
It's right from the beginning, we had franchising in
Mm.
mind because growing a service business is just really
Mhm.
hard. And we know this market. I'm from this area. Dean's from the area. I know who these people are. I had a network to reach out to. Going beyond that, the amount of work per customer is so it's just so much higher.
Mm.
So part of it was we just didn't want to, I didn't want to have to hire a manager in the new area and pay them before the business, kind of
Mm.
scaled. And I like franchising because people have some skin in the game. They put up some upfront money and they're motivated to make the business work, but then they get most of the reward, which is the best part.
Yeah.
And it's I shouldn't say easy, franchising is very difficult. I was shocked, but it's a good way to spread nationally without having to spread yourself too thin.
Sure. Yeah. When you're evaluating a potential opportunity for a new franchise location, what are some of the factors that you include?
That is a good question, and I think it's something we're going to probably have to adjust over
Mhm.
time. But you want to have a major metro
Okay.
area that you want to work around because the business only works if you have enough population density that you can do you know, at least one customer an hour, but preferably two or three an
Okay.
hour. So that's really huge. So, like I said, we're just south of Boston, but you go out west to like the Berkshires of Massachusetts, and there's nobody out there. It would be much more difficult out there. And we tested that by opening our only other office, which is in Worcester,
Okay.
just like another big city, just to see is it doable? If we were franchising again, what does the model work? But around us, I've got New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, and they all have that same problem. There's no density, or you have to charge double or triple.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are some of the automated systems, whether technology oriented, but what are some of the systems you've had to build to make this work? You've mentioned grouping, stops, provides a lot of efficiency, but what are some of the other systems you've rolled out to keep the business humming?
Yeah, so much of it is just reaching out to
Mm.
customers. Obviously routing and all that, it's tough to automate, but just stuff like let's say a customer goes on our website and they just start to fill out a contact form. We used to print out a list, which is crazy, of partial submissions and reach out to those people individually. And now they just get an automated text. email, depending on what information we have, customer follow-up. We used to call every customer, especially when we had our first employees. Did they do a good job? Is there something we could do better? Yeah. Now a text goes out, an email goes out, asks for reviews, asks for tips for the text. So most of our automation is about reaching out to customers, and then internally, the automating as much of the accounting as possible has been huge.
Okay.
So now I can see, we used to do it by hand. How many stops are we doing per hour? How much revenue is each tech bringing in per hour? How many complaints is a tech getting? And that gets really hard to track once you're really over like 2 or 3. And now we have 12 techs. So we have systems now that track that basically by the minute. I can see, is a tech at a stop? How long did they spend at that stop? How much money did they make at that stop? Because with every service business, it's about dollar per hour.
Right.
If you're not paying attention to that. And I think, at least for me and Dean, I don't have the capacity to sit down and figure that out day after day.
Are there any occupational hazards in doing this work? I assume that you're probably going when the owner isn't there. Is the dog out in the backyard? Do you have to deal with occasional dog bites?
That's a great question. And it has happened a couple times. We have a rule. We tell the techs, you got to make sure the dog's in the yard. You go to the same house for 5 years straight. You start getting comfortable. I know this dog, and something. All of a sudden, the dog's having a bad day, or they get a new rescue, and the dog takes a chunk out of your thigh. Right. One of our techs, he kept getting bit, and we kept being like, "How is this happening? Why are you getting bit?" Before him, we're averaging like a bite a year.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is tens of thousands of stops, and he got bit like 3 times in a month or something, or 2 months. And it turned out he really loves dogs. He's an older guy, and he had treats in his pocket. So what was happening is he'd walk into the yard, the dog was trying to get the treats in his pocket, and he kept getting bit on the thigh.
Oh my gosh.
It's just so funny, like something you wouldn't even think about. But
okay,
go
ahead.
The bigger hazard is having people on the road. I never thought about it, but these guys have so many driving hours, and accidents happen. They're out in the rain and the snow, so that turned out to be the bigger problem.
Okay, this is maybe an off-color question, but do you charge based on the size of the dog? I have a Bernese mountain dog who my budget for poop bags has gone up over the French bulldog I used to have. But does that change anything, like the frequency you have to come or anything like that?
So that's a good question, because customers ask that a lot. I have 2 German Shepherds. It's not the size of the dog that matters. It's how many dogs.
Okay.
And we tested that.
Okay.
Are we faster if it's a little dog versus a big dog, or a big yard versus a little yard? And the biggest factor was just the number of dogs.
Okay.
Because it's funny, but big dogs are actually easier. Because the poop piles are much bigger. So they're easier to see.
Okay. Interesting.
Right? So it's not like we're paying per pound to dispose of it or anything.
Yeah. How do you dispose of it, actually? How does that go?
A big gross dumpster.
Okay. Just regular trash pickup.
Just regular trash pickup, yeah.
Okay.
They're all, when we first hired the company to come, they weren't sure, can we do a whole dumpster full of dog waste? But it's really, if you think about what else goes into a trash, diapers, dog waste, rotten food.
Yeah.
So what difference does it make?
Okay. Fair. No, that's great. And then, going broader, because I have a lot of service business, both clients and other listeners that are different kinds of service businesses, whether it's pool cleaning service or power washing or landscaping. What is some of the best marketing advice you've received for, that you think might be broadly applicable to other service businesses?
I think a lot of service business, and this is something that we had trouble with in the beginning, is having service business is almost like an annuity. It builds slowly at first. You have to build your reputation. It's a lot more about the person doing the work and the quality of the work than like a product business, where it's like, if your product's good, you can spit out 100 ads about how great your watch is or whatever.
Yeah.
But with a service business, it takes a little longer.
Yeah.
And you kind of hit plateaus. You can only grow so fast before you have to bring someone else on, and then your revenue drops a little
Right.
bit. And that was really hard for us to wrap our brain around. And when we started forming the franchise, that's something we put up front. You can't pay your way out of growth. You can't put $100,000 in advertising. You might do better than the guy that did 10,000, but you're not going to skyrocket yourself to success. It just won't work. We tried
Yeah,
it.
sure.
It's really about reputation building, and
Yeah.
especially when, like a pool cleaner, you're going to someone's house. They have to like you as a person. They have to trust you. They have to trust your employees.
Okay. What do you do in social media and the content you put out? Like, how's that process? I know you guys do some funny things, and like you said, you lean into the puns and whatnot. How do you produce that? What's your process?
We hired a local guy who was actually making videos for real estate agents, like drone videos and 3D video of your house. But we just reached out to him and said, "Hey, do you want to do something totally different?" He's young. He's only in his early 20s. He's open to doing anything.
Okay. Yeah.
And, we just sit down and spitball ideas. But what I like about working with him and someone who's younger is when we were doing it on our own, I'm 40 years old, I don't know what's popular. And with social media, it's about how many eyes can you get
Yeah.
on it, even if it's someone's kid who sees it and they tell their parents. But social media is very tough. The return on investment is not as high. An ad that does great on Google for 3 months gets you like a week on Facebook
Right.
or Instagram, even less on TikTok. I mean, we just weren't fast enough,
Yeah.
so we don't produce on that. But also, you got to be careful because you can't talk about like poop and waste on Facebook. They're really quick to flag you.
Ah.
And in the pet industry, they worry about people selling, dogs. And so you have to be really
Oh,
careful
okay.
how you talk about, pricing
Yes.
and the dog and the service. But it's more fun because you can talk to people directly.
Yeah.
We get a million comments. I can't even tell you how many times I've heard someone say, "Oh, that's a shitty job." That takes a load off my
Oh
back.
man, I've been holding back that one phrase this whole time. So I'm glad that I wasn't the only one.
Oh no, I probably hear it, once a week.
I am so glad that there are people like you that provide a service like you do. This is obviously needed. You called out that some of the good things you do help those that are disabled, very occupied with young children, but it's good for the dogs. It's good for the yards, the neighborhood, the environment. I think what you do is so great. I don't say thank you for your service. I think that's appropriate. But now, Mark, this has been really fun. If people would like to talk to you, learn more, maybe franchise, maybe have you as a podcast guest, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can read on our website. If you go to callpoopaway.com, you can send us a message or email. I get all the emails directly, or you can find us on Facebook. Same thing, facebook.com/callpoopaway.com. Probably the two easiest ways to get in touch.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been great. I had a lot of fun.
Want to stay ahead of what's actually working in marketing right now? Head over to marketsurge.io and see how we're helping businesses grow smarter, faster, and louder. That's marketsurge.io, because your next breakthrough shouldn't be a guess.